So, welcome to the second quarter 2022 award ceremony. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize a few people that had joined us. My boss, City Manager Russ Blackburn. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Chief Assistant City Manager Jesus Morejo. I saw him come in, but I lost. There he is. And Assistant City Manager Teresa Lamar Sarno. Thank you all for coming out and supporting the police department. Let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Back there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Every time we prepare for one of those, the assistant chiefs challenge me to say something inspirational and inspiring. After 10 years, I struggle to be innovative with good words and come up with a new message, because the message is always the same. This is an awesome organization and an awesome community, and the results you're going to hear about here shortly. But U.S. News and World Report has actually given us a title. So congratulate yourselves on being a part of one of the second safest communities in the nation, or the safest second. All right, without further ado, Sergeant Delacroix, you want to get started with service citations?
Start with 5-year service citations. Detective Clayton Baldwin, Detective Latrice Holliday, Kat Kimball, Marissa Munoz, and Jamie Sparks. Ten-year service citations, Detective Matthew Aubert. 15-year service citation, Jill Kors. 20-year service citation, Officer Don Paris. Twenty-five-year service citations, Sergeant Stephen Helseth and Abraham Alvarez. Next, we have a special presentation from David LaFont with IRSC. He'll be presenting a Criminal Justice Leadership Graduate Certification to Officer Danny Vogelin.
Danny here?
Yep, right there.
Before you come up, and I'm representing Indian River State College. Just to give you a little background on this award, or the Leadership Academy Award. Basically, back in 2003, the Region 11 Council came up with a program to get the future of the region to the best and the brightest and get these leaders in place to replace our leaders that are here now. So to give you an idea what Danny went through, he 288 hours total, in addition to all the training he's already had. CJ Leader Ethics, Florida General Instructor Techniques, line supervision, middle management, building and maintaining a sound behavioral climate, and developing and maintaining a sound organization. 288 hours, and his profile in FDLE has over 1,000 hours, I think, of training. So, congratulations. Make it look pretty.
Educational Achievement Award, Officer Fred Naggs has achieved his Associates in Arts and Criminal Justice, and Stephanie Jones has achieved her Associates in Applied Science and Criminal Justice. Career Ladder Awards, Officer Andrew Zamfino has achieved Police Officer 1, Officer William Jarrett has achieved Police Officer 2, Officer Dave Goldstein has achieved Master Police Officer, and Sergeant Matt Peterzak has achieved Master Sergeant. Next, we have a unit citation for the Crisis Negotiation Team. Sergeant Brian Boyce, Sergeant Joe Norcus, Officer John Fazio, Sergeant Jamie Byrne, Officer Al Corona, Officer William Thompson. Congratulations. Based upon a nomination received by Lieutenant Beath, you are being awarded a unit citation for your extensive experience, skills, and knowledge as a crisis negotiator. At a moment's notice, you respond to a scene where an individual is in crisis or those who pose a threat to law enforcement. Then, without hesitation, you rise to the challenge and present a calming presence to those who you serve. Lieutenant Beath provided a multitude of instances where a CNT member was needed to respond to a call for service. One example of your superior knowledge and collaboration is when Sergeant Norcus was attached to the PSL PD SWAT team to assist with a child pornography search warrant. These types of search warrants historically result in violence or barricaded persons. During a search warrant, a man identified as the suspect was hiding in the house and refusing to exit. Sergeant Norcus quickly called the suspect and convinced him to surrender without harming anyone. Sergeant Norcus stuck to his training and used proper negotiating skills to assist in the surrender. The CNT team is instrumental in assisting officers. The team provides a sense of calm to people in crisis, eases those irritated individuals, and instills peace in a chaotic incident. Lieutenant Beath stated the job of a negotiator is not easy, nor do they seek glory, but when they perform at a high level, they deserve to be recognized. Due to your unwavering commitment to the crisis negotiation team and the citizens of Port St. Lucie, you are most worthy of a unit citation.
While they're making their way back to their seats, I just want to comment that recently they updated the Tactical Operations Center with a piece of hardware that I can now have a set of earphones and I can listen in to what's going on during the negotiations. And I can tell you, being on the phone with one of these subjects for hours and hours and hours, in my experience, just listening to it has got to be the person who's got to make the right decision every few seconds and when you're having a conversation, because you're controlling the potential outcome, could be probably one of the most stressful things I've ever seen in police work. So Great idea with the headphones, guys. I have a whole new appreciation for what you do when you're sitting inside that van. Thank you.
Next, we have a unit citation for the closure of 7 crime patterns. Detective Bob O'Hara, Detective Pete Pisani, Officer Angel Vargas, Detective Nate Penny, and Detective Dominic Savichev. Congratulations, you are being awarded a unit citation based upon a nomination submitted by Sergeant Kaminsky due to combined efforts in closing 7 crime patterns affecting 2 police districts. During March and April, Districts 3 and 4 saw a spike in unlocked auto burglaries targeting small items of value. At this time, surveillance video was collected depicting an individual with a distinct stature and clothing. However, identifiable information was not obtained. On April 5th, Officer Vargas conducted a traffic stop on a suspicious vehicle in an active pattern area. Officer Vargas identified the male suspect and a female passenger in the car. Officer Vargas conducted a thorough interview on the scene, but could not establish probable cause and the subjects were released. Officer Vargas provided a detailed account of the traffic stop, which was forwarded to CID. CID Detectives Pisani, O'Hare, Savichev, and Penny reviewed the footage of the stop, pieced together enough similarities with the alleged suspect, and believed he was the individual involved in the multiple patterns. Detective Pisani and other CID detectives showed the body camera footage from the traffic stop to one of the burglary victims. The victim positively confirmed the stolen items from their vehicle were in the suspect's car. The evidence collected in surveillance videos from the burglary scenes and pawn transaction footage yielded probable cause to issue warrants for 16 burglary charges. Detectives learned that the suspect fled the area to avoid arrest. However, on June 14th, the suspect was arrested in Lake County, Florida on all 16 active PSL warrants and in custody. With the combination of proactive policing and concerted efforts to solve the crime patterns, you achieved a common goal of arresting the suspects in these cases. Your actions are an outstanding example of teamwork that ended an ongoing crime spree. Because of your collaborative efforts, you are deserving of a unit citation. We have a unit citation for the record section. Linda Cole, Elaine Cook, Karen Baggett, Carlene Cooks, Aubrey Ward, Isabel Rodriguez Holder, Jackie Rivera, Carmen Tiana, Sherry Barrett, and Denise Marengo. Based upon a nomination received by Karen Baggett, you are being recognized with a unit citation for your teamwork as you experienced staffing shortages in your section. This entire unit has performed exceptionally during the last few months, while staffing sometimes has been reduced by 4 people. Additionally, the new warrant process keeps an employee away from the office each week for up to 8 hours, causing shortages for tasks of handling extra phone calls and the counter where residents seek public records requests. You have assisted coworkers in getting the job done while maintaining a professional attitude and providing excellent customer service. Karen Baggett mentioned it has been my pleasure to be their acting manager during this time. I don't know how else to thank them enough for their support, efforts, and continued willingness to do whatever it takes to keep the records section functioning properly. Because of your commitment to the agency and the citizens you serve, you have been awarded a unit citation.
Congratulations.
We have a unit citation for the East Region burglary sprees. Detective Sergeant Josh Safamilla, Detective Chevy Gochman, Detective Daniel Papaleo, Detective Brendan Vega, Janelle Ramirez, Detective Christopher Capozzi, Detective Bob O'Hare, Detective Pete Pisani, Officer Ben Gaspar, and Joel Smith. You are being awarded a unit citation based upon a nomination submitted by Commander Donnell for your collaboration on the burglary sprees occurring on the east side of the city. On the evening of May 9th and May 10th, the eastern portion of the city experienced 13 vehicle burglaries where an assortment of items were stolen. Soon after, the suspects made numerous fraudulent credit card transactions. Officer Gaspar quickly obtained video surveillance of a suspect vehicle and the suspects completing the transactions. Detectives completed follow-up concerning the sprees and identified the vehicle used to commit these crimes and 2 juvenile suspects. The duo was taken into custody, and the next day, confessed to the burglaries. They also aided in the recovery of some of the stolen property. During interviews, Detective Sergeant Safamilla learned the two juveniles fired the stolen firearm before throwing it into a canal. Detectives and CSI investigators successfully located the stolen gun in a canal along with 2 magazines and a spent casing. With the arrest of the suspect, 13 cases were successfully cleared. After the arrest of the suspects, the detectives continued their investigations and recovered a large portion of the stolen items. The items were returned to the victims, who showed their appreciation for everyone's efforts. This is an excellent job of how diligence and teamwork came together to apprehend persons responsible. Each person involved played an important role, but collectively they did a great job coordinating resources, apprehending suspects, recovering stolen property, gathering criminal intelligence, and clearing the cases. Because of your commitment to the agency and the citizens you serve, you have been awarded a unit citation. Unit citation for armed robbery at a business. Detective Sergeant Josh Safamilla, Detective Pete Pisani, Officer David Petrie, Detective Jerry Harrington, Detective Brendan Vega, and Officer Bryce Thomas. You are being awarded a unit citation based upon a nomination submitted by Commander Donnell. On April 11th, Officer Thomas was dispatched to Northwest St. Lucie West Boulevard, where an armed robbery was reported. It was found that the victim was selling a gaming system from a social media website and met with 2 potential buyers. During the transaction, one suspect pulled a firearm, and both suspects robbed the victim of the gaming system. Officer Thomas obtained the registration information of the suspects and photos of the suspects on their social media accounts, which were provided by the victim. Detectives arranged a photo lineup, and Officer Petrie administered it to the victim. The victim identified the suspect from the photo lineup, at which time Officer Thomas secured an arrest warrant for one of the male suspects for robbery with a deadly weapon and unlawful use of a two-way communication device. Detective Pisani and Vega located the vehicle utilized in the robbery in Fort Pierce. Detective Vega learned that the Fort Lauderdale Police Department obtained the search warrant and installed a GPS tracker on the vehicle, showing the vehicle was in the vicinity at the time of the robbery. Detective Vega identified a second suspect, and based on the evidence, search warrants and subpoenas, an arrest warrant was secured. Detective Sergeant Safamilla and Detective Vega and Harrington worked with the United States Marshals Service to serve the arrest warrant, where the suspect was taken into custody. Detective Vega obtained confessions from both suspects on their involvement in the robberies and several in Broward County. During the interviews, Detective Vega found that the stolen gaming system was pawned in Oakland Park and the stolen property was returned to the victim. After the suspect's arrest, detectives continued their search, where a large portion of the stolen goods were returned to various victims of other crimes. This is an excellent example of how your diligence and teamwork apprehended these violent criminals, and is the reason you are being presented with a unit citation. Yeah. Unit citation for a child abuse investigation. Sergeant Chris D'Angelo, Detective Samantha DiPiero, Officer Ivan Dominguez, Officer Nikki Tomzik, Officer Angel Vargas, Joel Smith, Sergeant Reese Kilner, Officer Sarah Brostinet, Officer Natalie Mastrangiola, Officer Stenley Tomzik, and Peter Negron. You are being awarded a unit citation based on a nomination submitted by Sergeant D'Angelo. On May 18th, officers arrived at the Belmont Apartments for a court-ordered DCF child removal and break order. Several attempts were made to contact the child's mother via phone and at the door. While attempting to verify that she was home from an outside window of the residence, officers noticed the living conditions of the apartments to be deplorable. At this point, officers could not verify if she was home. Criminal Investigations Division completed a follow-up child abuse investigation, which led to the arrest of the child's mother. If it is not for the attention to detail, communication, and swift response, the subject would have continued the abuse and neglect of her child. The action of everyone is a testament of their cohesion and teamwork. Unit citation for assistance with the tornado in the Spanish Lakes community. Lieutenant Jesse Anigo, Sergeant Adrian Zamoyski, Officer Jared Eiler, Officer Robert Penny, Sergeant Tara Pavlishin, Officer Brent Crawford, Officer Dylan Kresick, and Officer Kayla Reedy. You have been awarded a unit citation based on a nomination submitted by Sergeant Zamoyski. On June 9th, a devastating tornado touched down in the Spanish Lakes community where several homes were damaged. While the thunderstorm was still occurring, Sergeant Pavlichin and Officers Reedy, Crawford, Eiler, and Kresick went door to door to verify if any individuals were injured inside their mobile homes. They continued to do so as the rain continued to fall while navigating the hazards of fallen power lines and dangling metal. When they did not get an answer at the door, officers attempted to locate telephone numbers to alert respective homeowners to the damage. Once the fire department arrived and assessed the damage, the officers maintained security of the area to ensure no vandals would prey on those whose homes that were damaged and were being relocated. Because of the quick response and action shown during this weather event, you are most worthy of a unit citation. Unit citation for DUIs. Officer Giuliano Faleros, Officer Cassandra Munoz, Officer Nikki Tomzik, Officer Dionis Veras, Officer Yamlet Hernandez, Officer Patrick Simpson, Officer Stenley Tomzik, and Officer Andrew Zamfino. Based upon a nomination received by Lieutenant Inigo, you are being recognized with a unit citation for your common goal of traffic safety. As a commitment to our agency's traffic enforcement initiative and zero tolerance policy on drunk or impaired driving, evening shift B squad officers share a common goal of traffic safety. By proactively patrolling the streets for such offenders throughout their shift and by assisting in the capacity of a breath test operator, their efforts resulted in a total of 19 DUI arrests. The importance of such work goes without saying. Your continued efforts have, without a doubt, made the streets and citizens of Port St. Lucie much safer. As a result of your outstanding traffic patrol and enforcement, you are awarded a unit citation. A unit citation for an incident on Northwest Cornell Street. Sergeant Mark Bowles, Sergeant Jamie Byrne, Officer Adam Doty, Officer Danny Green, Officer William Jarrett, Officer Colton Reisinger, Officer Alexis Solis, Officer Mike Williams, and Sergeant Byrne is also receiving a commendation citation for this incident. You have been awarded a commendation citation based on a nomination submitted by Sergeant Brian Kenny. On May 2nd, a female reported that she and her live-in boyfriend had a verbal dispute in the garage during the early morning hours. The male pushed her to the ground while yelling at her and put a handgun to the back of her head. After a few minutes, he let her get up from the ground and pushed her against the washing machine and pressed a handgun against her forehead, stating, "Give me one reason not to kill you and your family." He then forced the gun down her throat and she was unable to breathe, as well as causing a cut inside her mouth. The victim was held against her will for approximately 2 hours until the children woke up for school and he allowed her to leave with them. The investigation resulted in probable cause being established to arrest the suspect. As the victim was tended to and the incident was documented, officers met to formulate a plan to contact and apprehend the suspect. Sergeant Bowles, Officer Williams, and Reisinger were assigned to the rear of the residence, and Officers Doty, Jarrett, and Solis were assigned to the south of the residence. Sergeant Kenny and Officer Green closed the roadway in the vicinity of the home. Sergeant Byrne assumed the solo role of crisis negotiator. Sergeant Byrne contacted the suspect via phone and quickly established a rapport with him. After several minutes, Sergeant Byrne gained the man's trust and persuaded him to exit the front of the residence unarmed and to meet Sergeant Kenny at the end of the driveway. Sergeant Kenny took the man into custody and arrested him for domestic battery, aggravated assault with a deadly firearm, and false imprisonment. The firearm used during the incident was recovered and placed into evidence. The actions taken by the responding officers, along with their focus on the assignments and discipline during a high-risk and stressful event, ensured a safe outcome for all involved, to include the neighboring residents. Because of your drive-in determination to apprehend this individual and work together proactively is why you are receiving a commendation citation. Next, we have a commendation citation for a traffic stop and false imprisonment. Officer Josh Pito. You have been awarded a commendation citation based on a nomination submitted by Lieutenant Mike Beath. On May 8th at 4:30 p.m., Officer Pito was conducting a close patrol in a neighborhood located in District 2. While preparing to set up for radar duty, Officer Pito recognized two women in desperation. The women were being forced into a vehicle and appeared to be screaming for help. Officer Pito left his position and rushed to the women, but the driver of the vehicle fled the scene with the females in the vehicle. The two women can be seen inside the vehicle screaming for help. Officer Pito calmly called out the location and direction of travel as he navigated through the streets. He informed his supervisor of the speeds, traffic conditions, and the weather. The suspect driver realized that Officer Pito was not allowing him to get away, so he quickly dumped the women off and sped away. Officer Pito stopped to render aid, but not before he obtained the vehicle tag and got a good look at the driver. As Officer Pito rendered aid, he confirmed the crime of kidnapping and false imprisonment. Additionally, he also established the driver's identification. Officer Pito completed the investigation and filed for a warrant and arrested the suspect safely later. Had it not been for Officer Pito's keen eye, the two women could have been harmed and possibly severely injured. Your quick actions that day is the reason you are being awarded a commendation citation. Commendation citation for sniper craft training event. Sergeant Sal Garcia, Detective Matt Aubert, Detective Robert Mayer, and Officer Carl Durbin. You have been awarded a commendation citation based on a nomination submitted by Lieutenant Brent Black. Lieutenant Black wrote, Detectives Mayer and Aubert, Sergeant Garcia, and Officer Durbin represented the Port St. Lucie Police Department and the agency's SWAT team at the sniper craft training event in St. Petersburg, Florida. The event consisted of multiple sniper scenarios, which included positional shooting, cardio-induced stress, target identification, weapon manipulation, and partner communication support. A total of 38 teams attended this event. Detective Mayer and Detective Aubert placed first in the event, and Officer Durbin and Sergeant Garcia placed fourth. The praise is not for placing well in the event, rather the dedication put into your training, which is centered around real-world scenarios. Your commitment in improving yourselves to be ready when needed by the citizens of our city was on display at the event and showed based upon how well you performed. Commendation citation for an incident on Northwest Conover Street. Officer Al Corona, Officer Dan Dahlia, Officer Adam Doty, Officer Kevin Fry, Officer Danny Green, Officer Josh Pito, Officer Colton Reisinger, Officer Michael Williams, K-9 Officer William Harris, and K-9 Bodie. You have been awarded a commendation citation based on a nomination submitted by Sergeant Brian Kenny. On Tuesday, June 28th, Officer Pito responded to a call where he met the complainant at a local convenience store where it was explained that his adult son was at the residence detoxing and making homicidal threats. As well, it was learned that the subject had a handgun. Sergeant Kenny was informed the subject should be home alone, that a dog was in the house, and that the subject should be in the garage waiting for the caller to pick him up. At the convenience store, several units arrived, and Sergeant Kenny formulated a plan to take the subject into custody safely. Officer Fry would act as the drone operator, Officer Corona's role would be the crisis negotiator, and Officer Dahlia would assist. Additionally, K-9 Officer Harris would approach Officers Doty and Reisinger from the rear, and Officer Williams, Pito, and Green, and Sergeant Kenny would close surrounding roads with their marked patrol vehicles. Rescue was staged nearby on Northwest Oroso Boulevard. Once all positions were set, Sergeant Kenny instructed Officer Corona to initiate contact with the subject via phone, as he could see from his position that the resident's garage door was completely open. Officer Dahlia relayed via radio that Officer Corona was speaking to the subject. A few minutes later, Officer Green observed the subject emerge from the garage. Officer Green began giving verbal commands to him, but the individual saw Officer Green and Sergeant Kenny began yelling, "Shoot me," multiple times. They tried to calm him by verbally de-escalating him, but he started to step away from the house and into the front yard, ignoring commands. K-9 Officer Harris, his K-9 partner Bodie, and Officers Reisinger and Doty moved up to the side of the residence to confront the subject as Officer Green and Sergeant Kenny closed the gap on him. The man continually refused to comply with the commands given. As they closed in, the man turned around and put his hands behind his back for Officer Reisinger and Sergeant Kenny to secure him, and he was taken into custody with no force used. This situation quickly intensified, but the restraint and professionalism displayed by the responding officers led to a safe outcome. Commendation citation for an AOA scam. Detective Amanda Bucata, Detective Nicholas Lavecchio, Officer Randall Wegner, and Des Moines Deputy Schweiss. You have been awarded a commendation citation based on a nomination submitted by Sergeant Timothy Bort. On May 20th, our agency received an assist other agency request from Deputy Schweiss regarding a telephone scam case he was investigating. A resident victim was scammed into mailing a package containing $8,000 in cash to an address in Port St. Lucie, believing it would assist a relative who was allegedly to be incarcerated. Realizing the parcel was being tracked via FedEx, Deputy Schweiss relayed this information to PSL PD Officer Wegner because the package was to be delivered the following day. Additionally, the delivery address was in Officer Wegner's assigned zone. Officer Wegner notified Sergeant Bort of the circumstances leading to this call for service, and a plan of action was set in motion. CID adopted the case through our chain of command, intercepted the package, conducted a sting operation, and arrested 2 suspects. The package was delivered and several minutes went by. 2 suspects out of West Palm Beach arrived and took possession of the package and drove away. The duo was stopped by Detectives Buccato and Lavecchio, interviewed, and ultimately arrested. This collaborative investigation resulted in the victim's money being returned to them. This case exemplifies Officer Wegner, Detective Lavecchio, and Detective Bucato's tenacity and dedication to duty for making every attempt to hold thieves accountable for their actions. Had they not, a golden opportunity would have been missed, and the suspects would have victimized more unsuspecting individuals. In addition, the sharing and flowing of information between agencies reinforced the notion that crime truly has no boundaries. Outstanding work by all involved. Civic Award for K-9 Strong, Officer Joseph Rathnam. You are being awarded a Civic Award based on a nomination submitted by Sergeant Sal Garcia. You are a director for a nonprofit organization called K-9 Strong. The mission of the organization is to provide safety and training equipment to law enforcement K-9 units in need. Some law enforcement agencies throughout the country don't have the funds to equip their K-9s, which can result in possibly avoidable injuries. During this quarter, your organization raised approximately $10,000 and helped over 20 K-9 teams throughout the country. You contribute a large amount of volunteer hours to accomplish the mission of assisting these teams, which in turn allows them to serve their communities in a safer and confident manner. As a testament to your devotion to law enforcement K-9s and your immense number of volunteer hours, I'm proud to present you with a Civic Award. Administrative Excellence Award, Gretchen Raziella, our Model Traffic Stop Coordinator. You are being presented the Administrative Excellence Award for the second quarter of 2022 based upon an award nomination submitted by Sergeant LaGrega. In 2020, the Port St. Lucie Police Department received a Community Policing Development Micro Grant from the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. The grant was awarded to provide funding for an innovative youth engagement project, the development of the Officer Steve Brown Model Traffic Stop Program. The goal of this project is to educate 10th grade students in a positive way about the behavioral expectations for drivers, passengers, and police officers during a traffic stop. You eagerly spearheaded this endeavor. The project included the development of a clear model traffic stop program curriculum and multimedia instruction materials based on extensive research and established best practices. An online toolkit was developed and a website was created. Additionally, student focus groups and program steering committee members provided input regarding the content. Also, Indian River State College conducted a third-party evaluation of the program to ensure the validity of the results. Subsequently, the program curriculum was added to the 2022-2023 school year in 4 local high schools. At the Florida Association of School Resource Officers Convention in Orlando, you promoted and distributed the program to law enforcement agencies and school districts nationwide. Our vision is to include the program as part of a state and national law enforcement accreditation standards. You have spent many hours reading various materials to familiarize yourself with traffic stops, as well as spending time with officers, obtaining their feedback, and incorporating traffic and road patrol officers into the program. You learned various computer programs needed to design and run the program. You sought out advice, feedback, and assistance from members of the agency to ensure you were on task with the overall feel of the program. Your focus throughout the project was to honor Officer Brown and find a balance between its content and how to connect with the students emotionally. The Officer Steve Brown Model Traffic Stop program has been presented to nearly 250 students thus far. Additionally, the program has been exceedingly well received and media coverage has been highly favorable. Based on your creativity and high skill set, you are presented with an Administrative Excellence Award. Exceptional Duty Award, Officer Jonathan Golson. Based upon a nomination received by Detective Brennan Vega, you were chosen to be the recipient of the Exceptional Duty Award for the second quarter of 2022. On May 9th, you responded to a care center on Southeast Walton Road in the assignment of a uniformed crime scene investigator to assist with a smash-and-grab vehicle burglary. You diligently dusted for latent fingerprints, which was lifted from the victim's vehicle and later submitted to the CSIs for processing. Shortly after this incident, you were requested to respond to another care center on Southeast Hillmore Drive in the role of a UCI. As another smash-and-grab vehicle burglary occurred, you obtained latent fingerprints from the second victim's vehicle and later submitted the prints to the CSIs. As a result of your hard work and attention to detail, the crime scene investigators identified 2 separate suspects in the vehicle burglary series. It was later determined that the 2 suspects had been targeted assisted living facility parking lots in numerous other jurisdictions in addition to Port St. Lucie and had been unidentified until your latent prints retrievals. The identification and subsequent investigation led to multiple felony charges and warrants later being obtained for their arrests. The identification also assisted other agencies obtaining arrest warrants for the suspects as well, which has brought recognition and acclaim to the Port St. Lucie Police Department. This would not have been possible without you performing your duties at an exceptionally high level. Exceptional Duty Award, Lieutenant Matt Cuba, Officer Fatima Barrera, Officer Brittany Holly, Officer Jared Isla, and Officer Joshua Pito. Based upon a nomination received by Commander Michelle Steele, you have been chosen to be the recipients of the Exceptional Duty Award for the second quarter of 2022. Officers responded to Southeast Veterans Memorial Parkway in reference to a female laying in the roadway. Upon officer arrival, she jumped into the nearby lake. The Marine Unit, headed by Lieutenant Cuba, responded to the scene. Marine Unit officers Pito and Barrera arrived with the skiff and attempted to talk the female out of harming herself by potentially drowning in the water. When those tactics did not work, Officer Holly boarded the skiff with officers Pito and Barrera while they maneuvered the skiff and attempted to coax the woman to shore. Once close enough, Officer Eiler waded into the water and Officer Holly jumped into the water and placed the woman into custody for a Baker Act. Although the woman was attempting to avoid being taken into custody, all officers worked together to ensure she did not place herself in any more danger. Your swift response and actions quickly resolved this situation, which could have a different outcome. Congratulations. Volunteer of the second quarter, Harvey Hager. Based upon a nomination received by Donna Hentz, you have been selected as the volunteer of the second quarter for 2022. Ms. Hentz stated Harvey has been a volunteer for over 2 years. He is currently a member of the Tradition Community Patrol. Harvey began recruiting volunteers for the Community Patrol, hoping there would be enough to begin a new community patrol in Riverland, Valencia Cay, where he resides. Harvey gave presentations to the Women's Club and the Men's Club of Valencia Cay, as well as submitting the Community Patrol brochure for publication in the local community newsletter. Through Harvey's efforts, numerous residents have submitted applications for our next Community Patrol class. Because of this, an additional Community Patrol vehicle was issued to the community. You're an active volunteer who cares for his community and city. For this reason, you have been awarded Volunteer of the Second Quarter. Civilian of the Second Quarter, Cheryl Davis. Based upon a nomination received by Sergeant Vega and Jamie Sparks, you have been selected as the Civilian of the Second Quarter for 2022 for your outstanding work. Sergeant Vega stated Cheryl was selected to be part of the county-wide project based on your knowledge and experience in the field of crime analyst. Her role in this very daunting project is instrumental in how the agency will continue to analyze crime after the implementation of the new CAD RMS systems, ensuring the transition will be seamless. You have the foresight to understand future data tracking needs that benefit the entire county. You play an important role in creating new modules and questions in officers' written reports so the data can be extracted at any given time. Representing the Port St. Lucie Police Department, you work closely with other state, local, and federal agencies, maintaining strong working relationships which prove beneficial to our agency. You play a vital role as the analyst for administration, working on various projects and assisting the chiefs as needed. You are eager to help at times, at a moment's notice, and with a short deadline, and always do with a smile. Based on your involvement in this project, along with your willingness to go above and beyond to help others, you certainly deserve to be named Civilian of the Second Quarter. Detective of the Second Quarter, Detective Supreet Fragat. Based on Detective Sergeant Vega's nomination, you have been selected as the Detective of the Second Quarter for 2022. As a crimes against persons detective, you perform exceptionally when conducting investigations. Your expertise and competence have led to favorable outcomes to unfortunate situations. You maintain an astonishing 80% clearance rate. You can be counted on to assist whenever a need arises and have availed yourself on numerous after-hours investigations when not obligated to do so. One noteworthy case was a home invasion robbery. A 22-year-old resident of Port St. Lucie was a victim of a home invasion robbery where 3 armed male individuals kidnapped him from his residence at gunpoint and forced the victim to drive to a location in Miami to retrieve money. The suspects threatened to kill the victim if he did not fulfill their demands. Additionally, several firearms utilized in the commission of the offense in the victim's stolen property, to include $6,200 in U.S. currency, was recovered. At the conclusion of the investigation, PSLPD detectives successfully arrested and charged the 3 suspects with numerous felony offenses. You were instrumental in this investigation, not only actively participating in the inquest, but also providing guidance and instruction to other detectives assisting with the investigation to bring forth a successful conclusion. You are also a field training officer. You have utilized this role on many occasions to assist, educate, and train newly minted police officers, as well as fellow detectives. You have demonstrated a passion for policing and helping others. These attributes are evidenced by your numerous successful criminal prosecutions and the assistance provided to your colleagues. Based on the above outstanding work and your commitment to excellence and representing the agency with distinction and pride, you are being awarded Detective of the Second Quarter of 2022. And our last award of this afternoon, Officer of the Second Quarter, Officer Carlos Valentin. Based on a nomination submitted by Sergeant Dorico, you have been named Officer of the Second Quarter for 2022. Since joining our department nearly a year ago, you have quickly proven to be an asset, accomplishing highly accredited acts during this short time. You are committed to solving problems, hold a true team player mindset, and are very proactive in providing superior customer service. Having prior law enforcement experience, you have a key fundamental concept of problem-solving policing, coupled with an understanding of the concept pertaining to the stratified policing model. You conducted a traffic stop on June 4th, which spawned into a statewide FDLE and multi-agency task force criminal investigation, to which led to identifying key suspects to a larger criminal enterprise responsible for the spike in catalytic converter theft statewide. Based upon your proactive policing and the above-mentioned facts, you are most worthy, deserving to be awarded as the Officer of the Second Quarter.
Let's give Sergeant Delacroce a hand. That was a lot of words. And Officer Valentin is not here because he's not feeling well, and he did not want to risk exposing any of us until he knows what's going on. So, tremendous amount of great work. Everything from civic awards to hair-raising standoffs with people experiencing mental health issues to some very, very intensely complex fraud cases. Great record section, always in there plugging away for us. The amount of support we get, just tremendous. Thank you. We don't do enough to thank you. But great job this quarter. Keep up the great work. And I believe there are refreshments. There are refreshments back at the station. So thank you. Have a great day.